If a man's thoughts are not dissipated, if his mind is not perplexed, then there is no fear for him while he is watchful. Not a mother, not a father will do so much, nor any other relatives. A well directed mind will do us greater service. Let the wise man guard his thoughts, for they are difficult to perceive, very artful, and they rush wherever they list. Thoughts well guarded bring happiness, as the champion warrior relies upon his armor strength for victory. So also right, thought is like a strong crucible to withstand the six sense robbers, said by Buddha. Wheresoever the restless and unsteady mind may wander away, let man withdraw it from there and bring it under the control of the self alone. He whose patience are quieted and mind perfectly tranquil, who has become one with Brahman, the Supreme, being freed from all impurities, to such a yogi comes supreme bliss. Thus, constantly holding the mind steadfast, the yogi, whose sins are shaken off, easily attains the infinite bliss born of contact with Brahman. Bhagavad Gita. Power of thought. Nothing is more potent to mold human life than thought. It is a motive power which drives this mission of body, mind, and senses. But its activity is not limited to the physical organism or to the immediate surroundings. It extends to vaster regions, outstripping lightning in swiftness. All mortals instinctively possesses this power, though its external manifestation may vary from one individual to another. It is nevertheless equally latent in every living creature. The variations that exist arise from differences in the development of the mind, its medium. According to the capacity of the medium, this inner power is manifested as the sun appears in varying strength when it shines through a clear or a clouded glass. So, also the power of thought shines more effulgently through some minds than through others. The use or abuse of this force determines the destiny of man. When thought is properly controlled and directed, it lifts him ever higher and higher. When it is ill directed and uncontrolled, it drags him down and bars his growth. For verily man is what he thinks. Our whole lives are nothing but external manifestation of our thoughts. Whether this is conscious or unconscious, it is always a creative force, a seed which sooner or later will bear fruit as good or evil action. If our minds dwell on things which are trivial and unwholesome, we soon find that our whole nature is being colored by them. Similarly, when our minds are fixed on lofty ideas, our natures are inevitably uplifted and transformed. All activity is preceded by thought. First we think, then we act. Therefore, it is impossible for anyone to refrain from mistakes or evil deeds without paying proper heed to his thoughts. Thought must first be right for us to act wisely. Buddha says if you remove from conduct the purpose of the mind, the bodily act is but like a rotten wood. Wherefore, regulate the mind, and then the body will spontaneously go right. There are few people who think consciously. An impulse comes, a desire awakens in the heart, and at once the whole thought is carried away by it. It takes possession of the mind as if man has sold himself to it. In the Gita, we read when a man's mind constantly dwells on sense objects, he begins to value them and becomes attached to them. From this attachment arises the desire to possess them. and if anything stands in his way, he grows angry. Through anger, he loses all control and power of discernment, and thus he works his own run. At first, the object and he stand as two separate entities, but through attachment and lack of discrimination, he becomes identified with it and naturally suffers from whatever effect it may produce. When, however, the mind is controlled and discriminative, one can avoid such dangers. Suppose someone speaks harshly to you. Can it really hurt you? No, it is you who give importance to it through your own thought. If you analyze, you will find that your heart on account of your own mental attitude, and it is that which shatters your strength and brings suffering. Without a properly controlled mind and the habit of right thinking, no one can therefore travel safely on the path of life. Even our ordinary duties cannot be performed without right thinking. And right thinking means the awakening of institution, the establishing of tranquility in our whole being. Cultivating strength of mind, this is what we need in order to think properly. Ordinary minds think, but their thoughts are broken before they have achieved their objective. They therefore cannot serve their purpose. However small or great be the objective to be achieved, unless the mind is a thinking mind, it cannot accomplish anything. No matter what we do, no matter how insignificant our position may be, whether many depend on us or only a few, we have a certain responsibility in life. To meet this ably, we must learn to live with understanding, and we cannot acquire this understanding without bringing our thoughts under our control, making the mind introspective, in other words, without gaining the power of concentrated thoughts. The chief aim of all religions and philosophies is to lift the mind to a state of perfect balance, serenity, and vigor. In order to do this, concentration is essential. Practical religion always leads to contemplation. We must think diligently and learn to adjust our forces. We must find out what are our needs and defects. What are the causes of our mental disturbances and distractions? We can discover these things only when we look within. So, we must become meditative, for looking within ourselves is what meditation means. Constantly thinking of an object in the external world is also a king of meditation as our thoughts flow steadily towards it. But it ends up in mere dissipation of strength. When, however, our minds are focused and turned inward, when they are well established on the higher dimensions of life, then they may be called truly meditative. And through this, we gain real wisdom and happiness. Meditation is a key to knowledge, the source of all power. Even those who seek knowledge at the material plane, scientists, discoverers, or inventors must develop a certain habit of meditation. If they do not have great concentration, if they do not plunge heart and soul into their research, they cannot discern anything. In the same way, when we wish to discover the subtler facts at the spiritual plane, we must gather all our forces and turn them within. Then alone can we gain understanding. Man must know. Merely believing in some theory, in some doctrine or dogma, is not enough for the intelligent mind. A wakeful mind cannot be satisfied by simply hearing about things from others. Therefore, Vedanta declares that religion is a matter of perception, of actual realization, or individual experience. This power of realization is not confined to a few great ones only. It is the bright right of every living being. We all have the power to centralize our energies and realize the same truth. If only we will try to awaken our inner nature and strive with perseverance, determination, and the real power of will, nothing can stand in our way. We gain institution through the meditative habit. Things which once seemed impossible become possible to us when we learn to turn our eyes inward and see for ourselves. We too can perceive and prove all the mighty truths proclaimed by the great seers if we follow their footsteps and lead the same kind of lives, self control, mastering of our lower nature, and acquisition of direct knowledge are not mere theories, they can be achieved. We know that there are people born with superior power, superior understanding, and greater control than others. What makes the difference? It is the wakeful nature of their minds which enable them to acquire these. However, we all have same possibilities. We can either become weak by letting our minds get scattered and filled with selfish desires, or we can become great mentally and spiritually by focusing all our energies on higher ideals. It is said in the scriptures, mind alone is the cause of bondage and of liberation of mankind. The impure mind binds man, the purified mind frees him. The mind is impure when it is divided and lacks discrimination. It is pure and clean when it is whole, for purity means wholeness, something that is unadulterated. The tendency of an undisciplined mind is to be divided and scattered. Most people never try to control their thoughts. They do not seem to realize that following them helplessly, letting them wander, hither and thither unchecked, leads to a tremendous waste of energy. A scattered mind is indeed the greatest drawback in all human endeavor. We may have every advantage in our external lives, but if we are lacking in purity or also wholeness of mind, we can make little use of our opportunities. Most of our sorrows, sufferings, sickness, and failures are due to our divided minds. Until we can gain command over our scattered forces, we can achieve little on any plane. In fact, we cannot ably perform the simplest task unless we have a certain degree of concentration. An unconcentrated mind is bound to be vague and unstable. It cannot see the present clearly. It has no power of foresight with regard to the future, and it cannot retain the experiences of the past. Experience is the basis of all knowledge, and only when we can retain what we have learned through experience can we progress. Yet, how few really remember the lessons they have gained from their past experiences so that they can recall them and not commit the same blunder over and over. This is because their minds are so fickle, so unstable, that they cannot carry any line of thought to a conclusion. Continuity of thought is necessary to attain success in any undertaking, and continuity comes only through the power of concentration. There can be no peace or rest for us until our minds are well collected and focused. We often see that a person who is tired and wants to rest finds no rest even though he may be lying on a soft bed. Why? Because his forces are so scattered, his thoughts are so distracted that he cannot quieten his mind even thought his body is free from activity. There are some who have the notion that resting means doing absolutely nothing, to give up all thoughts to quieten their minds. But we cannot give up thinking. The mind will always go on thinking about something. Only there are certain thoughts which are restful and certain thoughts which bring unrest. When our minds are directed towards elevating objects, they will then become calm, serene, and strong. But this is possible only through constant mental discipline. When we first try to focus our thoughts, we find how dissipated they are. The state, however, is nothing but the result of our own unconscious habits of thinking. Therefore, we must cultivate counter habits to surmount these. All thinking is just a matter of habit. At first, it may be quite difficult because all our past habits will dominate and try to overpower our minds. But we can conquer through constant determined effort and discrimination. For instance, one who has been accustomed to many forms of distraction like reading light novels finds it very difficult to hold his mind on serious subjects. Yet, through persistence, he begins to cultivate a taste for them, finding the same satisfaction in these as he found in his previous habits. This shows that what we call the natural trend of mind is nothing but habits which we ourselves have formed. Therefore, even the weakest and the most degraded human being can become strong and noble through the power of well directed thought. The same force which once dragged him down now becomes the means of his regeneration. By right thinking, a man can free himself from bondage, disease, and imperfection. And through wrong thinking, he can create fetters for himself by constantly thinking that we are pure, that we are children of God, that become so. And this is one of the great lessons that has been given to the world by the teachers of India. From time immemorial, sages have declared that if a man desires to be liberated from bondage, he must awaken in him the power of right thought. Let him feel hopeful, for he has something within which is mighty. Let him not think that he is a weak person or a sinner, dwelling on the blunders he had committed out of weakness or ignorance will not help. Even if he had done something wrong in his life, it would be better for him to forget it and start doing right things afresh. That is the only way he can counteract his defects and go onward. Let him live, let him have an idol to focus his thought on. Then, when he has learned to concentrate all his forces on that idol, he will soon rise above his present weakness, for all weaknesses are the result of dissipation and misuse of energy. There are four kinds of help which we can render to our fellow beings. We may give a needy man food, clothes, or money, but his needs will keep arising. Next, we may provide a secular education. Education opens a man's eyes and teaches him how to take care of himself. So, to give him knowledge, even secular knowledge, is a great thing. The third form of help is to save a man's life. This may seem to be the greatest help, but death may seize him at any moment. The fourth and the highest help is to teach a man how to control and direct his thoughts properly so that he may gain understanding or wisdom. For this will save his soul. The first three forms of help are unquestionably good, but the only permanent help is to guide people to gain mastery over all their powers because they can then stand on their own feet and work out their salvation. The secret of success, health, and happiness lie in the power of concentration, and nowhere is this need felt more keenly than in the Western world today. What is the cause of many nervous disorders that are found among people? It is because they work too much. No, it is not the amount of their work. It is the misdirection of their energies. It is the lack of proper control over mind and body, which at present is killing everyone little by little. Work by itself cannot exhaust us, cannot make us restless and unhealthy. It is misdirected activity that does. We do not know how to do our activities properly, how to protect ourselves from our own undisciplined thoughts. What we need is not so much to lessen our activities as to gain the habit of controlling our minds and throw our minds over all our forces. This, however, cannot be accomplished in a day or by chance, nor can it be given by another. It can be acquired only by ourselves through regular practice. In the Gita, when Arjuna, the disciple, says, "This wisdom which has been declared by you as even mindedness, I do not see the possibility of its lasting existence because of the restlessness of the mind." The Lord replies, "It is true that the mind is restless and difficult to control, yet through constant practice and dispassion it can be subdued. But this wisdom is undoubtedly difficult to attain by one of uncontrolled nature. Therefore, if we wish to gain control over our minds, we must take up regular practice. The first thing we must learn is to sit quietly for until we can restrain our physical activities and hold our body still. We cannot gain mental poise. Nothing curses nervousness and improves our health more quickly than the daily exercise of sitting still and checking all unnecessary and unconscious movements of the body. When we have succeeded in doing this, the mind will naturally become calmer. Then we must take some idea to fix our thoughts on. At first, the main practice will be to drive out from the mind the several other thoughts that crowd it. But by persistent effort, the number of these will gradually decrease and the mind will become stronger, steadier, and purer. Even a few moments spent in this way each day will clarify the mind, strengthen the will, and enable us to do our duties with ever growing efficiency and wisdom. Though thought is such a mighty factor in our daily living that one single thought in the morning can fill our whole day either with sunshine and joy or with gloom and depression. All our powers and all our weaknesses come from this one source. Each of us creates a world of our own, which is but a reflection of our thoughts. It is our own mental attitude which inspires love or hatred in those we meet. Every thought of love we send out is sure to awaken a thought of love in response. So, too, with every unloving thought, also each of our thoughts unites us with the great cosmic currents of thought, intensifying our individual state of mind. All the results we attain are according to our thoughts. It is thought which determines the true value of every act. Sri Ramakrishna shows this in his parable of two friends. One day, when they were strolling about together, they reached a place where a religious service was going on. One of them said, "Come, let us stop here for a while and listen to the holy words said." The other refused, saying, "No, what is the use of listening to the Bhagavatam? What is the use of listening to the Bhagavatam? Let us spend the time in public hall over there where we shall have some recreation and pleasure." The first one, unwilling to leave, stayed on to hear the Bhagavatam. The other went to the place of amusement, but all the time he spent there, he kept thinking to himself, "Alas, why have I come here? How much happier my friend must be, listening to the sacred words of the law. Thus, though he was in the public hall, his thoughts were fixed on God, while the first one who was listening to the Bhagavatam found no joy in it and regretted that he had not gone with his friends. His thought remained constantly on the pleasure he was missing, so he reaped the fruit of worldly thought, while his friend gained all the merit of holy thought. This shows that our external actions cannot be fruitful unless our thoughts are in accordance with them. When our hearts and hands do not work together, many of our apparently good undertakings do not bring the desired results. Without harmony between body and mind, we cannot achieve any great end, either physically or mentally. When, on the other hand, all our forces are united, so great is our power that if we fix our thoughts on the desired outcome, it is sure to come to pass. Hence, he must carefully consider about what we think and whether we would welcome the outcome when it comes to pass. This is the reason why we should practice discrimination at every step, not only for our own sake, but for the sake of others as well. We should guard our thoughts carefully because they directly or indirectly influence all those with whom we associate. We may refuse to acknowledge this, saying, I have no responsibility for anyone else. But no one can come into contact with us without being affected by our state of mind. It may not be intentional on our part, but our every thought, conscious or unconscious, is radiating good or evil influence and creating an atmosphere which everyone does feel. However, it is not enough to merely discover this power within us. We must also find out what it is, from whence it has come, and whose it is. Unless we understand this, we cannot use it intelligently. It is dangerous so long as it is in the hands of one who is limited and ignorant, for infinite power in the finite hands is always dangerous. We must trace it to its sources. We must realize that our little minds are actually part of a great universal mind, that the thoughts which impel and shape our lives are, in reality, one with the mighty current of cosmic thought. We may use it independently and to small ends to gain health, mental power, or success, but only when it is united with her Supreme, when our minds constantly rest in Him, when we are conscious of His presence in all our thoughts, in all our actions, in all our lives, when our whole heart, soul, and body become instruments in His hands, only then do we gain possession of this power in its fullest measure. Therefore, if our thoughts ever remain connected to the pure essence of our being. This is the book here, Power of Thoughts. I hope we can learn many things from this book. Thank you.